All right, welcome to this spray paint art video on poppies. We're going to do poppies, and we're going to use a simple black and white background. Now, this is actually a really quick and easy flower painting technique that you can use for all kinds of fun stuff. Let's get started. I'll be working on wood, prepared wood, and this is just a little painting surface created by my local carpenter that I requested. It's a piece of wood with a frame basically nailed underneath it, so it makes a very nice surface to paint on. It comes out pretty elegantly, and I've prepared it with a little bit of acrylic sealer and gesso mixed up. And you can see it's not a very thick coat, and I wasn't too careful about it. If you want this really fine, you can do several layers and sand it and create an even better surface. But these kind of rough surfaces, I actually really like painting on them because some interesting things happen with the paint. It starts to sink in some of these lines that the paintbrush makes, and it's kind of cool. So as you can see, we've covered the whole thing up with a layer of white spray paint, and then we've added in just one little area a little bit of clear coat, on top of that a little bit of black, and then I'm going back in with my clear coat and blowing it around. And that's creating sort of a little area where our flowers can start to come out of. And I'm going to surround that with a little bit of white. Now I'm doing it that way because I want to kind of frame my flowers in a little bit of mist. So I've got my little area with some black stuff going on, and I want a nice layer of white underneath that. And now I'm going to start working on maybe a little bit more black background there. I've added a little transparent to some other areas. A little bit more black, and blow it around with my clear. If you add white on top of that, sometimes you get some interesting effects. Sometimes the spray paint starts to kind of break up and do some stuff. Anyway, you don't have to do it in this order. Basically what you want is an area that has sort of a grayish black abstract background going on. And on top of that, we're going to start adding our poppy stems. Now we're working really, really wet, so when we take our medium-sized paintbrush or whatever paintbrush you want to use and dip it in that black and kind of drag it up and create those stems and those leaves, notice how the lines that were there previously, when I prepared my wood, you can see that all those paintbrush lines are still there, and the paint is starting to sink into those lines, and it's creating a really cool effect. Now you won't get this obviously if you're painting on poster board. But if you want to experiment with preparing wood or even preparing poster board with your gesso, you can see that when you do a really rough preparation and there are these paintbrush lines on your painting, it actually could add some cool effects if you work really wet and you let all that paint kind of sink into those lines. Now I've let this dry completely because it needs to be dry for us to add our flowers. So flowers are super simple. Let's get started. So basically we're going to take a piece of poster board, get some nice bright red color, spray a circle, and in the middle of that circle spray some black, and then just smoosh it down wherever you want a flower, and there you go, there's a flower. And of course it's an abstract flower. If you want detail, you're going to have to add that. You could add with a brush or anything, but if you want to keep it abstract, that's kind of cool too. So another sploosh of red and a sploosh of black right in the middle, and let's press it down on our painting where we want another poppy. There we go. Maybe we can get a couple out of that. Because again, this particular painting is going to be somewhat abstract. So it doesn't matter if the poppy comes out perfect or not. You can always add another one nearby. You may need to experiment with some different brands of spray paint to get good flowers, different colors will do different things. So don't give up if your first ones don't look like these. Just try some different brands, try some different combinations. If your paint is really, really thin, you may need to let it sit for a little while and thicken up. If your paint is really, really thick, maybe you need to add a little clear coat. You need to work with what you can get. But this technique is really fun, and it'll let you make a whole bunch of flowers really quickly. Now there may be some parts of these flowers which don't look exactly right. You can take your paintbrush and dip it in your red paint and just kind of fill in any areas that need a little bit more definition. You can also put a little flower anywhere where maybe you need a better, stronger stroke, better, stronger look. I'll put a flower there. That looks better. You can fill in areas. Sometimes you get like a little bit of white when you use this poster board technique. A little area will come out a little white because you press down a little more there. There wasn't quite as much paint there. Well, you can just fill it in with your brush until you get it the way you like. And feel free to add as much detail as you want. I'm just keeping it simple here with just plain red and firming up the edges, but maybe you want to add some highlights and shadows and, you know, make these even more perfect and beautiful. That's up to you. I'm keeping these ones simple. Just tightening up the edges a little bit. Filling in white spots. And maybe some of these stems with a little bit of black paint. I want to make them go right up to the flower, so with just some black paint I can go in and just draw in a few little more details of stems and leaves, anything I want, just finishing up my design. And that's really that simple to make these beautiful abstract flowers. And if you paint on wood, not only do you have the option of creating cool designs underneath with your gesso and your sealer, but it looks really beautiful and perfect to hang on the wall anywhere or give as a gift. Hope you've enjoyed this and you give it a try. Ciao.